Okay, great, great. All right, so let me just make the formal introductions first, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
So you're aware that this is the International Writers Inspiring Change, which is the platform that did a couple of features, or at least 2 features on your books, and I think we're still waiting for one more review to come
Yeah.
through.
Yeah. Well, there's 28 total, but I appreciate everyone you've reviewed.
Yeah, well, I personally read. I just finished, as you probably know, No Mud No Lotus, but we'll take that up in a minute. So we're interviewing Keith Thorn from the United States. Where are you located now? Are you in Texas or?
I'm about 5 miles from Mexico. I'm in an RV about 5 miles from Mexico. I'll stay here till about May 1st.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I see that I didn't get my video going here. 1 second.
That's okay. You're a mystery.
Not intentionally done, but again, hopefully there's no technical issues here. We normally have another setup completely, and that, of course, failed about 5 minutes before the podcast. So let's just hopefully this comes through okay. I'm going to try another approach here. Let me just see if I can get you on another line here. 1 second.
Okay. Is it morning in Sweden?
No, it's evening. It's just after 8 o'clock in the evening here.
Okay, good. It's 1 o'clock here in the afternoon, just past pool time.
Yeah. And probably much better temperatures than we're having here.
In progress.
All right, I'm going to try this other one here. 1 second.
There you go.
Okay, now we got the tech team to fix that one.
That's the more comfortable chair anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Much better than standing up for a podcast. All right, there we go. All right, you can see me okay?
Very good.
Okay, great. All right, so once again, let's start over again. This is the Author Shout Out podcast, which is part of the iWick platform, and we're interviewing Keith Thorn. And you said what, about 5 miles from the Mexican border?
Yes, about 5 miles, about one
Okay.
nautical mile.
And the temperature where you're living, where you are right now, is what?
It's 80 and sunny.
Nice.
It's
Yeah, well, on this end of the world in Sweden, it's cold and it's dark and it's raining.
yeah. Well, it'll be back in what, May or something.
Well, we usually start to see a change in everybody in Sweden starts counting down the days, because around just after Christmas, you have the equinox there.
Yeah.
There's the
Yeah.
longest dark day, and then it starts to go from there.
Mm.
And pretty much by February, March, you start to see some sun again.
Good. Yeah, it'll be about 75 here through the winter. 75,
Um,
mostly sunny. That's why we come down here. They call us winter Texans. We we're from north near St. Louis, which is in the middle of the United States. This is about 1,200 miles south for us.
yeah. And you do this regularly? You go between there and yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is our third year doing this. We
Right.
spend 6 months basically in one summer, and then we go 6 months to the other summer. This feels like summer for us.
Yeah. Well, it's a good setup, you know.
It is. It
Uh,
works nice.
I mean, in the winter, St. Louis is not exactly the warmest place to
It's
live.
not. It's pretty bitter.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there a couple times. I used to live in Los Angeles before I moved over to this side of the
Oh,
world.
well, they don't get any cold weather in Los Angeles.
They don't get any seasons. It's just hot or warm, or it's just different variations of warm or hot.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, okay, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be
Uh,
here, buddy.
yeah, great. And I really did enjoy your book, and we're going to get into that one.
Okay.
We have another one of our reviewers is taking up your book called No No Grapes or
No grapes
No
and
Grapes and
grateful.
Grateful, right?
It's a tongue
That's the
twister.
title. That's a tongue twister, which I'm going to talk about too, because these titles are really like when I first saw them, when you first approached the IWIC people, and then they contacted me about doing a review, I was like, I just couldn't figure it out, you know.
Well, you've been to America, so you kind of understand uh, the kind of the no sour grapes mentality.
Mm,
That's just kind of a term, no sour grapes. And so I just left out the words sour.
yeah, yeah.
And that's really where that came from. There's really that some of my writing over the last year or two, it's covered a lot of books actually, but the theme's pretty much the same. It, entitlement and gratitude don't coexist.
Mm.
So most of us choose one. Uh,
That's an interesting statement. Entitlement and gratitude don't coexist. I mean,
they just don't.
yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Is that something you've just experienced yourself or in writing the book or just in life in general or
I
observed?
think for me, it's been a growth journey, especially over the last 5 years, uh, 5, 7 years. Both parents have passed, and just change going on around me, and then being much more focused on writing over the last 5 years. It's really, um, it's I've always been a creative my whole life as an artist, as a
Mm.
designer, as a web designer, all the way up to now. And now, over the last 5 years or so, I've really just learned to use words in a more cinematic way, in a more, I call it a visual way. And so it's been a different path for me over that time. And and what I've really found fascinating personally is it's going to way outlive me. You can talk and people will forget what you said maybe, but you
Mm.
write it and who knows how long it'll last.
That's the great thing about books and words. They can be they just sort of echo down that that timeline into the
Hmm.
future. You know, you don't know how far it's going to go.
So, so to me,
Plus
that's that's
yeah, and plus the ripples that they create. You know,
yeah.
I remember when I was young. Just leaping off on your statement here. When I was young, I read a book by yeah, Richard Bach, which everybody knows. You know, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and I
Okay.
was just a teenager at the time, but the effect that that book had on me
Oh yeah.
influenced my whole life.
Yeah. Even books like Man's Search for Meaning. I can't even imagine how many people that has impacted,
Mm,
you know, just an amazing impact. And he's been long gone for a while. And you know, that was one of the books that I asked my kids to read when they were young. I wanted them to get outside themselves, get outside their mind, explore, explore. Don't be so introverted. Don't be so, uh, you know, the world doesn't revolve around us. And
no, no, that's right.
it was
There's a
a,
certain humility that you have to learn about life, and that.
yeah, I think when you've been through enough hard times, you've, you know, a lot of hard times we bring on ourselves, but a lot of it is just the events we go through. I
Mm,
call them events because, you know, one of my latest books, I sat down and I just tried to chronologically look at all the hurts
mm,
and basically not trying to create a pity party, but just trying to say, okay, somehow what I'm doing now is from that. And somehow I'm repeating things from those events. And so, you know, it becomes an interesting transformation that when you quit trying to avoid pain and walk beside it differently and not so much carry it like guilt, but walk a little differently, recognize it, and it has a different effect on us.
I think that was one of the things that I was so impressed with in reading No Mud, No Lotus, because I thought you made a really profound point in the book. Like we always talk about, we spotlight the successes and the upside of life.
Mhm.
But like you pointed out, you have to own the pain. You have to live the pain because that's where the roots for the rest of it goes. I mean,
Yeah.
when you get into the mud, you can only, well, you can sink further, of course, but
Mm.
eventually you're going to start to go up if you own it. And I thought that was a really cool perspective.
It's adding meaning to all the movement in your life.
Yeah,
And you know, No Mud, No Lotus. The title actually started from a photograph I took. I just thought they were beautiful plants when you get a great photograph of them, and then it just made me start thinking. Uh, you know, they're basically a swamp. You know, just a mud swamp, but they're incredibly beautiful.
and they're
Yeah,
growing all over the place in a
yeah.
swamp. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
and supports a lot of life and just amazingly beautiful. They can be, and they can be huge, and they just remind me they grow uh, through grace. Uh, and most of us in the book really pulls this out. Most of us are just trying to live pain free.
Yeah,
A-
that's
And
true.
the moment we get pain is when we shift for it's easy to be grateful for the sunshine and the 80 degrees and everything that's good. It's entitlement kicks in though when we don't like it. And
Yeah.
something should be better for us. And I shouldn't have had that happen to me or my child or whatever. And it's a really confusing part of life to be grateful in the mud. It's a really confusing um, place to be. And
It's almost even as you say the words, mentally I fight it because, like you said, when you try to tell somebody you should be grateful for being in the mud because it's gonna be a positive
mhm,
dynamic in your life at some
yeah.
point. You gotta go, well, I don't see that, because like you say, society or the current culture, the zeitgeist is like
Mhm.
saying avoid all of that stuff. Take the easy road.
And some of it too is really redefining gratitude. You
Mm,
know, if you go back, I'm almost 70, so I could go back quite a way, but there were a lot of positivity thinkers for a long time in the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s. But I'm trying to write from a slightly different perspective. I'm not talking about positivity. I'm not so I'm not talking about gratitude as happiness.
mm.
I'm really talking about it more from an awareness point of view. When you're more fully aware, it changes your perspective.
Yeah, exactly. I got to say one thing because you mentioned that the writing it's sort of form of art for you.
Mhm.
But I noticed when I was reading the book because I mean, I've read books on gratitude before, other authors and stuff,
Uh-huh.
but I've never read a book that was written in the style that you did, where it was you were portraying very deep sadness and depression and grief, but the beauty of how the words were written was was almost uplifting just to listen to read it. It was more like music, like lyrical.
Yeah. I told you I had grown up as an artist, even I can remember being 5 years old and getting a blue ribbon in the art show for the school district. And I was just creatively gifted that way. And, you know, even, even as artists, creatives, we always talk about there's only so many elements. There's line, weight, shape, color, texture. There's only so many elements.
Mm,
But to me, the writing has offered a different dimension of the elements. And that's where I find the most fun, uh, because, like color defines mood. And, writing doesn't have to work the same way. It has more dimensions to it.
that's
And
right.
that's a fascinating part of writing for me.
Yeah, I think that's a very good statement. I agree with you. It's an entirely different dimension. Moreover, it's almost like,
Mhm.
well, I find as an author, and I think other authors have said the same thing, it you can reach into sort of depths of yourself that you can't
Mhm.
do with other mediums necessarily. Maybe music, I don't know, but I'm not a musician.
It's
But
almost like, in a certain way, writing is affecting all the senses
mm,
in a certain way. Maybe you're hearing, but not the way you normally hear when you read. It's not an auditory hearing, it's your voice talking to you. So you
that's
hear
right.
and you see and you touch, and it's just an amazing medium.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Also very cathartic. You know,
Uh,
you get
agree.
this, you get a voice from the deepest part of yourself, and you can say it to the world, and you don't have to apologize for it because it's just you know, and nobody's sitting there censoring it.
Hmm. Agree.
What was the? I mean, obviously there were things in your past and your life that inspired the book, but let's take well, it doesn't matter either book, but the writing of these two books that I mentioned here. What was the threshold, the watershed, the point where you went, the experience that actually made you decide to start putting these things into words?
Well, I really think, um, transitioning from kind of grief to rediscovery, um, I think I hit a point of success in life, but had no stillness in me still. And I was trying to find meaning. And I don't know about you personally, but for me, I can't talk the way I write. I because I get to redo it so many times. And when you're talking, you just don't get the redos. And you
You
don't,
can't edit it.
yeah, I mean, it's amazing how if I could, even if we could, edit this video and go back and change some words around, how much smarter I would sound. Uh, but it is what it is. And
Oh, you're doing fine.
well, I appreciate that. So it really, there was a lot of personal healing that I needed to go through. I had been through a lot, even to talk about it sounds like a pity party. But I had been through a lot, and the most difficult thing I had been through really is I remarried about 6 years ago,
Mm.
and my kids quit talking to me.
Because you got remarried?
I'm sorry.
Or you mean because of the
Yeah,
the new
yeah, they
partner?
just felt like they didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to deal with a new relationship like that. They
Okay.
had a negative past experience, and I can't explain all of it because the communication was there, but I think that hurt me more than anything that I
Mm.
had experienced in life. Even, I mean, I lost half of my hearing when I was 3. I grew up fighting like it was nobody's business. Kids can be cruel. I much rather fight than be made fun of. Uh, Eventually got into martial arts. I've been teaching martial arts for about 30 years, and actually through martial arts, I quit fighting because
It's interesting, isn't it?
I quit fighting because through all of and I think the martial arts was really the start of the process that you brought up that kind of led to writing. But you martial arts is really more about learning to stay calm.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
right.
more
It's
about
restraint
that.
and discipline. That's right. I remember when I took it. It's so interesting that you bring that up because I took karate for a little while too. But my karate teacher said at the beginning of the sessions, he said, "I'm going to teach you all these techniques, but you're never going to use them."
And that it's there's a book that I actually started, and it's based on a quote. It's one of those books that I just sat down and haven't. I start them just to make sure I finish them, but they have to get in order. I have to finish the one I'm on before I can get to the next one. But it's that quote about the student says to the teacher, "You talk about uh, fighting." Uh, and 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 how do you live when you practice fighting so much? And the teacher says something like, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Well,
And
that's a great
it,
comparison.
it just so
Yeah.
like you said, you're practicing to never use that. But what you're doing is you're fighting the demons inside yourself. And I have a tattoo on my arm. Can't see it right now, but Tamasa Katsu Agasu. And it's the kanji. And it's basically true victories over yourself or
No,
oneself. True
interesting.
victory is over oneself. And that's what you're really doing in martial arts is you're really trying to fight the demons without becoming one.
Yeah.
And so all this just kept transitioning. Used to fight a lot. I haven't fought in 30 years. I haven't fought since I started martial arts. And it's not about fighting. It's about how learning not to fight and stay calm. And uh,
I think it's also like you well, you know what you can do, but you basically you realize that respecting other people and respecting life is more important than beating the shit out of them.
Yeah, yeah, it's just it's so deep, you'll never touch bottom,
Yeah.
because and that's where it kind of transitions over into the books for me, because I'm just trying to convey and understand and communicate this basic line of thought. All of my teachers in martial arts have been the kindest people. I
Yeah.
mean, the
I would.
kindest people. And I've never considered myself kind, but it's it's working through all of your events in your life and trying to just look at them, see the effect it's had on you, and realize it, you could you don't have to keep repeating those if you can
Yeah.
transition your attitude. And because a lot of times we just repeat our behaviors, especially in
Yeah.
negative situations, we're just repeating them over and over. And
Yeah.
and so
Just life triggers things.
mhm.
Yeah.
So just trying to grow through grace and develop a sense of peace and patience in our daily practice. Uh,
I,
so,
I, I saw a quote or maybe this is a paraphrase, but you mentioned, yeah, you mentioned in your bio, which we have on the feature that the Iowa people did on you.
uh,
You said that your basic approach with the book, I think you were referring to the No Grapes and Grateful. You said it's sort of like it's not you transition from why me to thanking, being thankful.
mhm.
In other words, like you said, it's not a pity party. It's not about the bad things that have happened. It's about being thankful for life.
It's really hard to grasp this concept that whatever has happened to you has brought you to where you are.
Mm.
And and it's a deep concept in the idea that I'm not grateful for losing my hearing. I'm not grateful for a divorce. There's a lot of things I'm not grateful that my kids don't talk to me. These are grown adults. But gratitude isn't about uh, having the best options. It's about realizing that uh, that word that I had used before, where we expect good things to happen for us, and
Yeah,
when
entitlement.
entitlement, when we live in that world, when we live in that word, you're never going to be happy.
No,
You're
no.
just not. And you might find some happiness, but entitlement is just the antithesis of gratitude. So,
But that's an interesting point. I mean, okay, we pretty much grew up in the same
mhm,
eras. I think I'm about the same age as you, and
okay.
the late '50s, the '60s, and '70s. You have the. I believe that the mindset back then was sort of like where you had to grow up and climb the ladder and find your way. But I think, in my observation, and also talking to many other authors around the world, that in today's culture, this sense of entitlement is so much more prevalent
Mhm,
that it affects the mentality that how the newer generations. And I think this is a
mhm,
valid point that you bring up. They're not being gracious or happy about what they have. but it's always got to be like, got to have more.
And it tends to come in the form of things. You know, we want more things, we want better things, we want more comfort, we want,
Mm.
and I heard a story that kind of also set me on the trail of both of these books, No Grapes and Grateful, and uh, No Mud, No Lotus. And the story was, this lady was in counseling, and she went in and she said something like, she said to the counselor, she said, you know, when I was married, I could afford so much. I drove my kids in nice cars. I took them to school. We had parties. I took them to the museums, and she just went on and on. And then she turned that on its head, and she said something like, "But now I'm so upset, ashamed, uh, depressed that, you know, I can barely get out of bed, and I can't go to the same grocery stores anymore, and I can't, and I have such a small home now that we all three have to sleep in the same bed." And she just went kind of on, and the counselor said, "You're an amazing woman. You're living an amazing life." And he said, he just took everything she said and said, "You're amazing." And, you know, he said, "You know, your kids, your young kids, it's like camping out every night. They get to camp with you every night." And he just turned everything on its head. And he said, no matter what you feed your kids, and to me, it was just, it's not about how much you have. It's not about, it's just, if you feel entitled, like that good life is what you're entitled to, you'll just never be happy unless you can keep chasing and gaining. But at a
Well,
certain point, you know, the rat race is tough, and it's hard to keep the momentum of that, and you wear out. And so that, anyway, that story was really impactful for me, that one person could see it one way and another person could see it as totally different in the same situations. And
totally like the glass half full, half empty scenario, you know.
mhm.
But
And
you
he
know,
took everything she said and turned it around.
yeah, exactly. I listen to people sometimes, you know, not authors as I'm talking to, but like
Mhm,
you listen to people's lives or their stories and how upset they are, and like you said, the victims. Okay, I'm not dissing people who have lived through tragic experiences. I mean,
mhm.
it's a terrible thing, but at the same time,
Hold on, hold on just a sec. Sorry.
no
Can you tell
problem.
I have a dog?
Yeah, I'm sure
Somebody knocked on my door. Sorry about that.
that's all right.
Um,
No problem. I have two cats, and they sometimes come scratching on the door too.
that's okay. There's a cat in the back and a dog in the front. Um,
But my
I
point that I was trying to make, which is sort of like to expand on yours, is that this whole sense of entitlement, which is sort of a bubble that kind
mhm,
of builds up around, you know, in society, and it's sort of endowed in the newer cultures. I think it creates that people are not thinking about how beautiful life is simply is. You know, a sunny day, beautiful trees, beautiful flowers, all the things that like that you sort of expanded on, even in your very
mhm,
colorful use of the English language in the book. You know,
uh-huh.
uh, people forget about that because they're looking through, it's an opaque glass. It's not what they want to see. They want to see something else, you know. And I think that is the important thing about your book, is that it puts the focus back on the simplicity of life.
It really is, and like I said, that was one of the things that was so hurtful, when you lose relationships. Uh, that's that's you could buy a new car, you could replace things, but relationships are tough
Yeah.
to lose, especially a close one. And this book is really kind of a rebellion against bitterness too.
Mm.
It's saying I just refuse uh, to be
Were
bitter.
you just on that point? You just touched on the word rebellion. Were you a counterculture guy?
A what? I'm sorry.
I said, just touching on this point of a rebellion, were you a counterculture guy back in the 60s, 70s?
Well, the problem that I had mostly was I was raised by a single mom, and you know I didn't have enough supervision. So I think that answers your question.
Well, that
Uh,
answers the question right there, right?
um,
Yeah. Oh, that's
it's
cool. I think you answered that very well. You've written a whole bunch of other books. We've just touched on two of them, right?
yes, there's actually I have a really unique way of approaching writing because I've always been an artist and a designer. I actually create the cover. I create the concept and the cover before I write.
Uh,
And it's kind of my way. So it's kind of, you both musicians, artists, creatives, all kind of have the same ability. When you talk to them, they can see it or hear it before it's real.
yeah.
And I can see the title and I can feel the story. And when I try to make the media part of it, the cover, I try to make the cover match what's going to be inside of it. And then I'll post that to my website and then it'll say coming soon. But it forces me to finish that process. And so that's the way
And it's usually the cover is done first, right?
oh
The
yeah,
mock-up.
yeah. I do the cover before uh I'll have much written out.
Mm.
And I'll
Do
start
you,
with
when you're writing a book, do you envision the whole story, start to finish in
well,
your head?
I kind of do loosely,
Mm.
loosely. And in other words, I get the feeling before I could see the details.
Okay.
I'll know the feeling. Now I have to transform that into some kind of organization. And then I'll come back and like on the book I'm working on right now is No Regrets. Really kind of fascinating concept too is how do you how do you say that when you obviously have regrets? How do you do that? And it's a really kind of the same mentality of I just learn to accept it. And when I learn to accept it and live with it, it changes it. But how so in my book No Regrets, what I did was I just chronologically laid out all the events, all the pains. And then again, not to have a pity party, but to go back and to begin to address them. And then set them in I basically came up with 5 segments of time and then just go back and start. And generally takes me about somewhere, but I generally write about 5 hours, 6 hours a day. And I get up about 4 in the morning and I generally write till about 9, generally. And
9 in the morning.
yeah, because it's quiet and
Yeah, of
I
course.
can't take distractions.
Uh,
Um, and
then you take the coffee then, or do you take the coffee when you start?
oh, I'm through like 4 cups of coffee before I'm done.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, then we're talking the same language because that's what I do too.
But it takes me, that's about 160 hours a month or
Mhm.
somewhere between 160 and 240 hours a month. So sometimes I can finish a book in a month, sometimes 2 months. It just depends.
Yeah.
But but For me, I think it moves fast because I'm basically going downhill with it. To me, the concept is everything. I basically keep in my iPhone, in my notes, I keep titles, and I'll just put the title in there, and I'll know what I'm thinking about, but I have this problem with remembering. So I have to write them somewhere, because that might be a couple of months before I even get back to it, to even think about it. But it's a
Yeah,
great way to always have my list of my concepts.
yeah,
And
at hand.
my
Yeah,
concepts are really, from an artistic point of view, I'm trying to take visual and words and match them. So that's where the title becomes such a big deal. And then match it with the visual. And to me, the writing, it's not the easiest part, it's actually the hardest part, but I'm so motivated because I've got the first hurdle done. I've got my own design. So I do everything from the creative side, the design side, uh, the writing side, the editing side, the uh, self-publishing side, the SEO side, the website. So I think I'm probably a little obsessive.
that's okay. That's an author's license.
Yeah. But I'm old enough to do what I want to do.
Uh,
So
you've earned that ticket. All right. I have one more question for you before we go into the wrap up.
okay.
Subject of forgiveness. How important is forgiveness in the whole process of dealing with one's past and facing not only what you did or the shame or the guilt or whatever, also what other people may have done to you. How important is that? In other words, is
Forgive
it part of the algorithm? And if it's not part of the algorithm, it's all of it's just not going to work. That's the question I have.
it's one of those words that's totally integrated into the process. You can't take gratitude and that be the only word you talk about. Within gratitude, there's a handful of other words, and
Mm,
one would be forgiveness,
mm,
and one would be grace, and one would be guilt, and there's all these words that are in there, and as you write, you try to pull them all out, and forgiveness is one of those words that most of the time you just have to forgive yourself.
right.
uh the other people do need your grace and mercy, uh but most of the time you're not responsible for other people, you're just responsible for yourself. So that's where the real forgiveness is, as we all regret how we dealt with things.
Well, this
And
kind of speaks back to the point in your book where you mentioned quite a number of times that it it's really recognizing that your responsibility for the situation that you're in or whatever happened
mhm,
to you. Because unless
yeah,
you come to terms with that responsibility, you never quite come up from the mud.
mhm. Yeah, you can't, number one, you can't change the past. Number two, you may have had no control, you may have had control.
Mm,
Uh, but forgiveness is, people talk about forgiveness is let me say it differently. Unforgiveness is drinking poison and waiting for someone else to die. You know, it just doesn't work very well. you know. So when you're unforgiving, you're just drinking poison, and you're the only one that's really getting hurt. And so,
it's self-inflicting.
yeah, it's a huge part of it all. And the faster we can learn that process, the more the the more grateful we're going to be, because
Yeah.
it's part of the healing that allows you to even uh, find meaning in grateful. It,
Mm.
it's these words are just, to me, all these words are like sometimes when I teach martial arts, I talk about it's like a giant cut stone. You could keep turning it and just seeing it differently as you keep turning it. Get slightly different look, but it's all the same stuff, all the same stone.
That's right.
And all these words that uh, we're putting in there. I use the word bitterness and guilt, and all these words are, these books were trying to unstrapulate this in a way that makes sense.
Mm.
And I think I said earlier, it's not about positivity thinking, because uh, when you don't feel positive, what do you do? So it's got to be
Mm.
something different than that. It's
Well, I have to comment here that the other things I was impressed on with the book, because as of the whole International Writers Inspiring Change, I think
uh,
part of their mission statement is promoting literacy and reading,
mhm.
and it's also something that I truly believe in too. Like, and so when I write my books, and I've been accused of this, I'm using too many high language, too many words that people don't necessarily have in their vocabulary today. And I personally
Uh-huh.
think that's a must for authors. That it's our job to actually keep the language alive, to animate it. And that's what I saw in your book,
Yeah.
is a lot of beautiful uses of language and analogies and
Yeah.
metaphors. And I think that is an important part of the whole process, because that's the beauty of our language. And if you only use 28
Yeah.
words,
Yeah.
you're
The
doing a
thing,
disservice.
the thing that frustrates me about writing the book is when my word's too big and it has to go to the next line. And, you know, it's it's like that's the word I want to use.
Yeah, and the autocorrect all makes it look, it doesn't quite fit. I
Yeah,
know.
so, and sometimes, people get a little put off by those big words. And I
Mm,
don't mean to use big words. I really don't. I think they're maybe 10% of the writing, but that's actually a lot when you got 40,000 words, or, that's a lot of big words. But the big words can express deeper meaning sometimes.
mm.
Uh and and I think they're more colorful, they're more expressive, and have more depth to them. So that's one of the reasons I really like them. And anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed that part.
I did. I did. And I'm sure your readers probably noticed the same thing. Maybe they don't say it the same way, but um, so you have a new book in the works. This one called Regret, right? Is that coming up soon?
No regrets. Yes.
No regrets, sorry.
On my website, it shows all the books. One of the other things I do that's a little unusual, it just because I like to be unusual. You said unconventional, but I put all of my first chapters in audio and I post them free. And then I
Mm.
post a PDF of all of my first chapters for free, because I really want people to experience the first chapter, and get a feel for it. And
You put that up on your website, you mean, or on your
yeah,
social media?
yeah,
Yeah,
no, on my website, every
yeah.
book has a free sample first chapter in print and a free first sample in audio. Now, sometimes I'll only go like 6 minutes into the audio, because if you've got a 23-minute first chapter in audio, it's too much to
Yeah,
accomplish.
yeah.
But I do that and again, it's kind of what trying to get the readers involved in the style, and it's something I don't know anybody else that does that. Uh,
Mm.
you know, uh, But even if
Well,
people read all my first chapters, and I'm still happy.
no, sure, of course, it still creates an effect. Well, you might start another trend here because once this podcast goes live, other authors do come to our sites and I go, "Oh, I'm going to do what that guy does."
Well, yeah, and when you're ready, I'll give you my website address. But I just, for me, writing has been exhilarating in the sense that I get to express in a way that I'm happy with, that's going to outlive me.
Yeah,
And
I totally relate to that. I totally.
yeah,
Well,
so
okay, so I got one more question for you, and then we'll do a wrap up here.
okay.
Um, what would be the one thing that you would tell a novice writer who's coming into the arena as advice?
Well, my advantage personally, and I think I remember a story. I love stories. I don't know if you figured that part out, but there was a Chinese not badminton, ping pong player, and he was the world champion. And he said, his critics said, but you have no backhand. And they were critical of that. He had no backhand. And he said, I don't need a backhand. I'm the world champion. But my point is, go to your strengths. What's your strength? And I happen to have a lot of them. I mean, more than I think an average writing person has. I have the creative to design the books. I've got the web experience. I can edit because I've done so many database things in my career, and I can just do a lot of things, but figure out the system. I figured out what I call a 19-point system. And I don't even remember them anymore. I just do them now. I have a
Hmm.
list somewhere that I kept in case I can't remember one day, but I just basically repeat my processes over and over. I do it the same way every time.
But like you say, focus on what you're good at, what you're
Yeah.
strong in.
Yeah. I'm good at.
Right.
So some people obviously may have to hire a designer.
Mm,
They may have to hire editors. They may have to hire proofers. They may have to do some things that I don't do, but stay within your strength. If you don't have a backhand, as in the Chinese ping pong player story, if you don't have the backhand, hire one. And to me, that's just where I'm really grateful. All of everything good and bad that's happened to me in life's brought me here to take all these talents and put them into a beautiful package. And I have 28 of them so far. But and lastly, I would say be true to yourself.
yeah.
Whatever
Great advice and great tips. And um, a lot of other authors would agree with you when I ask them that same question. So,
yeah.
um, what is your website? Tell us the website so we have it.
It's my name. It's so www means World Wide Web. So you don't even have to put that in anymore. You could just put in Keith, Keith, Thorn, THORN.com, and
Okay,
it'll find me. I have
good.
quite a bit, quite a bit going on. But if you go to the website, if you want to see a book, if you want to read a book, a first chapter, if you want to hear a first chapter, and they're available everywhere from Amazon to Barnes Noble to Books By to, I don't know, there's got to be 30 more
Yeah.
retailers out there that are online. And it's a fun process. I'm glad to join you in this writing experience.
Well, it's really been great having you on the podcast, Keith. I mean, you're
Let's do
very
another one.
insightful.
Well, we could
Huh?
do like 28 more of these.
Well, we are happy to do more with you, and we'd be happy to like feature and review more of your books too. I mean, I'm an avid reader, so and there are others like me
Well, I
that are part of
appreciate
it.
that. You know, and the other thing that I like is when I get a criticism that I can use
Mm,
or think about. Um, and I find that fascinating too, because there's some things that you either don't realize or you do realize, but you could change it one way or the other still, or you can leave it the same and be happy that people notice that.
exactly.
So
Well, we're going to wrap up the podcast. So I just want to let you know that the podcast will be posted on the podcast page, the Iowa
okay,
podcast.
that's
So you
great.
can always refer people there to see it. It'll be there for ever and ever.
Okay.
And the Iowa people will also send you a copy of the podcast through another file transfer service so that you can actually post it on your website or through
Okay.
social
Sounds
media
good.
or whatever.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it'll show up on YouTube as well.
Okay, good. That's exciting.
Yeah,
That's, between Google and YouTube, they own 95% of everything. So online.
good place to be. Well, Keith, it's been great talking to you. I mean, I could go on for an hour because, we stirred up a
I
lot of questions.
appreciate the time you took. I know it's frustrating to start out a conversation with technical difficulties. It's really frustrating, but you didn't say any bad words, and I I give you aliquots for that.
Thank you. All right. Well, we hopefully we'll meet up again in the future, maybe for another podcast and discuss
Okay.
your new book or whatever.
Yeah, looking forward. You
All
take
right. Have a
care.
great day down in Texas near to Mexico.
Yeah, have a good night in Sweden, my friend.
All right, man. See you
Take
later.
care. Take care now.
Bye
Bye.
bye.